Long before homes were filled with artificial scents, before candles were scented to imitate nature, and before fragrance came in bottles, people relied on living plants to shape how their homes felt. Not just how they looked, but how they were experienced. The air inside a home mattered deeply because it was inseparable from comfort, memory, and emotional safety. Fragrant plants were not decoration, they were part of daily life. In older homes, scent carried meaning. It signaled cleanliness, health, warmth, and care. When someone entered a house, the smell told them immediately whether the space was tended, whether it was calm, and whether it was lived in with intention. Fresh plant scents mixed with wood, soil, fabric, and food created an atmosphere that felt alive rather than controlled. People understood this instinctively, even if they never explained it in words. Fragrant plants were placed where people gathered, near windows, doorways, sleeping areas, and kitchens. They were grown in pots, hung in bundles, or dried and stored in small containers. Lavender, rosemary, thyme, basil, mint, jasmine, and geranium were not chosen randomly. They were chosen because they released scent gently over time, not overwhelming but steady, familiar, reassuring. These plants served multiple purposes at once. They freshened the air naturally, masked unpleasant odors, and contributed to a sense of calm. But more importantly, they created emotional continuity. A home that smelled the same year after year felt stable. Children grew up associating certain scents with safety and belonging. Adults associated them with rest, care, and family presence. Before modern cleaning products, homes carried the natural smells of daily life. Firewood, cooking, animals, damp clothing, and earth all left traces. Fragrant plants softened these smells, not by erasing them, but by blending with them. The result was not sterility, but balance, a lived-in warmth that could not be replicated artificially. There was also a belief, shared across cultures, that fragrant plants protected the household. Not in a mystical sense alone, but in a practical one. Many aromatic plants repel insects, reduce mold growth, and discourage pests. People may not have known the chemistry, but they knew the effect. Homes with certain plants felt healthier. People slept better. Illness seemed less frequent. Whether coincidence or pattern, these plants remained close. In times when life was uncertain and homes were small, scent became a quiet form of care. Tending a fragrant plant was an act of attention. Watering it, pruning it, drying it, and moving it closer during cold months was a way of nurturing something living within the home. That care reflected outward. A home that smelled gentle felt gentle. Fragrance also marked seasons. Fresh herbs in spring, flowering plants in summer, dried bundles in winter. Each phase carried its own scent, and with it, its own emotional tone. These cycles helped families feel time passing in a softer way, not rushed, not abrupt, but rhythmic. People did not talk about this as creating atmosphere. They simply lived it. Fragrant plants were part of the fabric of home life, as essential as light and warmth. They were reminders that the home was connected to the outside world, to gardens, to seasons, and to growth. This was why people used fragrant plants in their homes long ago, not because they were fashionable, but because they made life feel more human. Fragrant plants also carried meaning beyond the individual household. They were woven into family traditions, rituals, and shared moments. Certain plants were associated with births, marriages, and periods of mourning. Their scents became markers of important life events, linking memory to smell in a way nothing else could. Long after words faded, the scent remained. A single breath could recall a room, a person, or a season that no longer existed. In many families, knowledge about these plants was passed down quietly. A cutting given from parent to child, a bundle of dried herbs hung in the same place year after year, a pot moved indoors every winter without explanation. These acts were rarely documented, but they were deeply remembered. The plant became part of the household's identity. Its scent was not just pleasant, it was familiar. It meant continuity. Scent also played a role in relationships within the home. Fragrant plants softened shared spaces. They made rooms feel calmer, more inviting, and less tense. In crowded homes where privacy was limited, the presence of gentle plant aromas helped create a sense of emotional space. People lingered longer, conversations slowed, the home felt less harsh at the end of a long day. Unlike artificial scents, these plants changed subtly over time. Their fragrance shifted with light, temperature, and season. That variation mattered. It made the home feel alive rather than controlled. The scent was never identical from day to day, and that unpredictability mirrored life itself. Nothing felt frozen or manufactured. This connection between scent and emotional safety is why fragrant plants were rarely removed once they entered a home. Even when space was limited, people found room for them. They were not seen as optional. They were part of what made the home complete. The shift away from fragrant plants in homes did not happen because people stopped valuing scent. It happened because scent became something that could be manufactured. As industrial products entered daily life, fragrance was separated from the living plant and turned into something convenient, instant, and uniform. Instead of tending a pot or drying herbs, people could now open a bottle or light a candle and achieve the same effect in seconds. This convenience slowly changed expectations. Scent was no longer something that evolved naturally throughout the day or season. It became something applied on demand. Homes began to smell the same regardless of location, time of year, or personal history. What was gained in control was lost in individuality. The quiet presence of living plants was replaced by predictable, repeatable aromas. As artificial fragrances became more common, the knowledge of how to use plants indoors faded. People no longer needed to know which plants thrived inside, how to move them with the seasons, or how to preserve their scent. The plants themselves did not disappear immediately, but their role changed. They became decorative rather than functional, admired more for appearance than for the atmosphere they created. Over time, the emotional connection weakened. Scent stopped being tied to care and attention and became tied to products and routines. What had once been a living relationship turned into a background detail, and without realizing it, homes grew quieter in a different way. Less alive, less connected to the rhythms that fragrant plants once provided. What is happening now is not a trend, but a remembering. As homes become increasingly filled with artificial inputs, many people are noticing what feels missing rather than what is present. The return of fragrant plants is often unplanned. A small herb placed near a window, a flowering plant brought indoors for winter, a cutting kept alive without much thought. Slowly the home begins to change, not visually, but emotionally. People describe rooms feeling calmer, air feeling softer, and spaces feeling more personal. The scent is never overpowering. It comes and goes with light, warmth, and time of day. This subtlety is what makes it meaningful. Unlike artificial fragrances that announce themselves, living plants invite attention. They reward care. They respond to presence. In doing so, they reintroduce a quiet rhythm that modern homes often lack. Fragrant plants also reconnect households to the outside world. Even in apartments or dense cities, they carry the memory of gardens, seasons, and growth cycles. A blooming plant indoors during colder months reminds people that life continues beyond walls and schedules. This connection brings comfort, especially in shared spaces where emotional balance matters. Without instruction or tradition guiding them, people are rediscovering what earlier generations knew intuitively, that a home does not need to be filled with scent to feel warm. It needs living sources of it. And in tending those plants, families often find themselves tending something else as well: patience, care, and a quieter sense of togetherness. When people used fragrant plants in their homes long ago, they were not trying to improve their lives in any dramatic way. They were responding to something simple and deeply human: a desire for comfort, a need for calm, a wish for their home to feel safe, familiar, and alive. These plants were not solutions to problems. They were companions in daily life. What made them powerful was not the strength of their scent, but but the relationship they required. A living plant asks for attention without demanding urgency. It grows at its own pace. It changes with the seasons. It responds to care in quiet, visible ways. In a household, that presence subtly shapes behavior. People slow down. They notice. They tend. Over time, those small acts of care accumulate. A plant watered regularly becomes part of the household rhythm. Its scent becomes associated with shared mornings, evening conversations, moments of rest. Without anyone planning it, the plant weaves itself into family memory. This is something artificial fragrance can never replicate, no matter how carefully designed. The disappearance of fragrant plants from homes was never complete. It was more like a pause, a shift in attention. The knowledge was not erased. It was simply unused for a time. And now, as people search for homes that feel more grounded and less manufactured, these plants return quietly, without instruction or trend. What people are rediscovering is not nostalgia. It is alignment. A home filled with living scent feels different because it is different. It reflects care rather than control, presence rather than performance, and in that difference, something deeply familiar returns. This is why people used fragrant plants in their homes long ago, not because they were old-fashioned, but because they understood something we are only beginning to remember again, that a home is not just a structure. It is an atmosphere, and atmosphere, at its best, grows slowly, gently, and together. If you place a fragrant plant in your home today and allow it to simply exist there, you may notice something subtle begin to change. Not immediately, not dramatically, but over time. And that quiet change is